Hi, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter, your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer for Sports Illustrated and the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast. 365 days a year, we're coming at you, bringing you the best Raider information anywhere in the world. Thank you for joining us. Joined now by my dear friend, not just a media colleague, not just a very successful attorney in the Buckhead, Atlanta area of Georgia, but he is a dear, dear friend of mine. Him and his precious wife, Alicia, are two of my favorite human beings on the planet. Proud to call them my buddies. And John joins us each and every week. He's an award-winning journalist. And here's what we do. I cover the NFL every single day from a Raider perspective, in the building, covering it, talking to players, coaches, people in the organization. John looks at it, and I look at it microly. He looks at it macroly. And the reason, I know some of you who've been with us a long time already know that, but we're growing so fast, adding so many new listeners, I want you to understand why John's here. But also, as I mentioned, he's a very highly successful attorney. And so we want to be able to get a legal briefing on some of the subjects we talk about, but all of the subjects impact the Raiders. So, John, I want to get right to what I think is the most important topic we're going to discuss today from a Raider standpoint, although there are others that have significance. And that's the 5-game benchmark for a Raider coach. I think this is a phenomenal way. I have said you can't just pick a guy and pull him after one series. You're going to have, once you make your decision, you're going to have to find a guy and stick with him for a predetermined amount of time, unless you just know bad decision. Talk about this 5-game benchmark. I'd love your opinions.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about the Raiders schedule when it first came out, and surely we'll get in more detail a little later in the summer. But as the calendar has flipped, we're getting ready for camp. Many folks out there have probably done the same thing. They've looked at the schedule a little bit and they see a couple things, and they really do see a 5-game benchmark. Let me explain what I mean. I'm curious what the Raiders quarterback situation is when they are on the plane Sunday night on October 6th, when they're coming back from Denver, because that would be a line in the sand to consider making an adjustment if one needs to be made. So now let's take a look at the first 5 games. It really is a kind of a little part of the season that's very important. You could even argue the first 2 out of the 3. I would say, hey, let's just stick with the 5. We know the opener is tremendous with the Chargers. That's really one that is probably more of a must-win, I think, for the Raiders than the Chargers. The second game is at Baltimore. It's really, really beyond unlikely that the Raiders are going to get that one. The Panthers is a must, obviously, must win. And then you've got the 2 swing games in there, really, the Browns and the Broncos. What I'm interested in, and when you look at the way the season shapes up, again, what's going on that plane back from the Bronco game? If Aiden O'Connell is the guy that ends up starting, that is really the point where you're going to find out, is there possibly going to be a change? That would be the one, obviously, that makes the most sense. It's when you look at that first 5 games, and also you look at what comes after that. The Raiders' schedule is a little bit, they're all different every year, but really when we're talking about the quarterback, which is the main focus for so many folks, I really think that's it. What's in those first 5 games? What record does that team have? Wherever they stand, when they get on the plane to come back from Denver, that might be the point we look for a first significant change.
John, I love Hard Knocks. I love it. Absolutely love it. And I have not watched any of the off-season Hard Knocks. It's not because I don't want to. It's just because I've been so immensely busy and literally leave after this podcast to jump an airplane to go to Costa Mesa. So I'm living vicariously through you. So Hard Knocks airs the other night. My phone begins to blow up. And everyone's telling me, well, I hadn't seen it. And then you mentioned, we got to talk about this. So in the interest I've not seen it. But wow, I've heard about it from NFL executives, players, coaches maybe. It is fascinating. And that's why I said to you, what part of it do you want to talk about? And as soon as you said, I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm hearing. Talk about Hard Knocks with the with the New York G-Men.
So we're talking about off-season Hard Knocks, which is great. We've got, of course, training camp. Everyone knows we've got that in-season version now. Now we have off-season. Interesting. The Giants are the first ones up. The nice thing, it's not a bad thing. The shows are maybe a little bit shorter, and they're really spanning from kind of the time the off-season starts. And we're now 3 in, so it's okay if you haven't seen them, you can catch up. But you're going to get hit with some reality pretty quick. And there's some things that stand out about the Giants pretty quickly. You know, the biggest thing that stood out to me watching the first one is the burden of the Daniel Jones contract. Their general manager, Shine, is like, look, we're stuck with this. This is the money we have out. We're really stuck. You see them trying to think about what can they do in the draft, recognizing that they need to get maybe they need to make sure their backup situation's okay. Obviously, they lose Tyrod Taylor across the city to the Jets. The Giants look a little bit confused. They looked hamstrung by the Daniel Jones contract, and this looks to me like they've given way too much access to the folks at Hard Knocks. I'd be surprised if another franchise does that. You have heard from folks like Michael Lombardi talk about it looks like the Giants don't have an identity. I don't know if it's just the way the show has been put together or if it's in reality, but they do seem to be kind of wandering a little bit aimlessly. Their general manager seems a little bit naive at times. Again, that may just be the way it's coming off. You get a really good look at what happened with Saquon Barkley, and they're pretty much like, here's what we have and what we can do. And they got blown out of the water relatively quickly. And they were like, very clear, like, hey, you know, we tried to sign him last year. Another thing that stands out, a lot of these franchises probably watch everything because you see them in the office and you see the NFL Network on, you see other stuff on, you see some of the inside information trading and messages that get sent, including through the media. So it is once again a fascinating show. You take your hat off again to Marty Colliner, the inventor of Hard Knocks. You're absolutely inside the Giants, maybe a little bit more than they would wish. If I'm a Giant fan, my confidence is not high. It's really not very high. It looks like they are hamstrung. And if it is the case that, as some of us presume, that Daniel Jones cannot be a successful NFL quarterback, it is likely to get rather bare pretty quickly for the G-Men this year.
All right. So I want to read for you a text that I got from an NFL executive about the Hard Knocks. You ready? H. That's what he calls me, H. Did you see that? Now, remember, I have not seen it, but evidently there's a scene where one of the owners of the Giants goes into the general manager's office about Saquon Barkley. Did you see that?
Yes. Talks about being one of our is like, this is our most popular guy.
Yeah. So here's what the guy, H, did you just see Hard Knocks? Wow. Not a good look when the owner's in the general manager's office bemoaning what he's doing. This has been a car wreck for the for the Giants. John, those are pretty tough words.
Yeah, and if you frame it in the worst light, it can look that way. And this could look extremely bad if the Giants are like a 3 to 6 win team. I can see it. You see Brian Daboll, you see some of the other guys. You don't see necessarily that they're all connected. You see them. They seem to hear and absorb a lot of outside noise. I don't think it's the same as if Bill Belichick were in there with, you know, the curtains drawn, like, here's what we're looking for and doing. That again, maybe it's just the way it's put on, but it seems like the Giants are like, we've got all these ingredients and we're making a football salad and we're stuck with the primary ingredient, the lettuce. And they just kind of seem to be reaching here and there. And you see a bit about them getting Burns, the great pass rusher, and they get excited about what they might be able to do pass rush wise, but they don't appear to have a super clear identity. And it just is a little bit looser from the general manager position than you maybe would expect to see.
All right. I want to switch to Caleb Williams because you think that he's already being distracted in his play about money. And I want to give a little background here, and then I want your opinion because you're the attorney. His family leaked that he wanted a portion of the franchise by whichever team selected him, which was pure ignorance because the NFL rules say a team employee cannot be a part owner. So you're floating things that are impossible. It's just, it looks stupid. It made them look stupid. He wanted to get paid as an LLC because of the significant tax benefits in the state of Chicago. I don't blame him. I would have wanted that. The team went and checked with the league. The league said, no bueno, which is Spanish for no good. I just learned that, by the way. Sorry. And then the other thing he wanted to get looked at was could his pay be given to him as a loan? And rather than him paying him back when his career's over, then have him forgive it. And then he had to pay taxes then. Again, I think that's smart representation, trying to find every angle to save him money. Again, the league says, no bueno. I saw the ignorance before, but I didn't see this juxtaposed as hurting his play. So I'd love to hear your angle because I think we're looking at different angles. How do you think it's negatively impacting him?
Well, hopefully it's not negatively impacting him at all, but what it looks like is somebody's trying to reinvent the wheel. The wheel's already there. You think you're the first guy that's ever thought, hey, maybe I can get paid like an LLC, like an entertainer? Of course not. Of course not. This is not a new league. These are not new dollars. In fact, rookies used to get a little bit more in spots. A lot more, Sam Bradford. Hats off to Sam forever, right? I don't know what's going on here. It looks like they are running their own show and either not getting any advice or not listening to any advice. I don't know why you want to put yourself on the map, starting to try to play these games or make this public when this is plowed ground, baby. This is not like all of a sudden, wow, Caleb Williams figured out to get paid as an LLC or do this thing with a loan. How many people have already gone through and tried that and thought about that? Hundreds. Probably dozens, at least in Chicago. I don't know that this is the best way to come into your first camp. All you're doing is fueling the fodder for guys like Max Crosby and other guys that are going to be chasing you down and chirping. And if they can throw you off your game just a very, very little bit, it can be very effective. And all of a sudden you end up looking like an underachiever. This is all off field. We know where this is. I don't think it's a great idea to get into it. It seems bizarre that they are. For his sake, hopefully he's going to leave it all behind. A little bit strange, though. This is how you want to come in on day one? Strange.
The people around Caleb Williams, who in my opinion are supposed to be protecting him, are not. I feel bad for him. I don't think he's a bad person. I just feel bad for him. I don't think he's going to pan out at all. I think it's going to be I don't think it's going to be great. Most talented player in the draft, the most red flags. It's going to be interesting to watch. We're going to judge him in 10 years because in your number one overall pick, you should be still playing in 10 years. But it just is, it's a bad look. I do agree with that. John, I want to switch gears now because there's a brewing battle between a Hall of Fame quarterback and a potential future Hall of Fame quarterback. Troy Aikman and Lamar Jackson are in a battle. You're the attorney. Now be the referee. In the words of Apollo Creed, ding, ding.
We're talking about the number 8. Aikman, of course, with his very interesting, not yet sampled by, I don't think either of us, 8 beer. It's a very organic, low-calorie, healthy beer Troy's made. He, of course, was number 8. He's got the 8 thing going. But apparently Lamar Jackson says, hey, I have spent time, effort, expense, promoting, advertising, popularizing the number 8 in connection with my personality and fame. So we have appears to be a lawyer-initiated 8 battle. Who's going to get the copyright football for 8? Well, I don't know. As you all know out there, there's a lot of 8s out there. A lot of 8s. Now, these guys are supposedly playing at a national and international level. And really, I think the point and the emphasis, the intent of copyright law is to keep the consumer from being confused. So Is somebody going to get confused that they're buying a Troy Aikman 8 when they see a little logo with Lamar Jackson, Ravens colors, Ravens script 8? I don't think so. At the same time as somebody who's picking up a 6-pack of 8 beer with Troy Aikman's signature on it, are they going to think this must be Lamar's? Probably not, for a couple reasons. One, football fans are very sophisticated. They know the difference between the Ravens script and the Cowboys script. And two, everybody's got 8s. I don't think there's an NFL team without 8s. This is an interesting one. And I saw a tweet late last Friday night from Aikman, which I thought was a little weird to say anything about it. I don't know where this goes, but it could be mildly entertaining. It's interesting. You've got a massive star from the past, a humongous TV audience every week, one of the biggest shows on cable of the week, of course, Monday Night Football. Troy Aikman's not going anywhere. It's a separate conversation, but since I'm taking my hat off today, we all have to take our hat off to Troy Aikman. He is the best player that's ever been a great announcer. I know Giant fans, Eagle fans, Redskins fans, I know they all think Troy's after him. You got to give him credit. There's nobody that's done that good as a player, that's been that committed and has turned out to be that good of a broadcaster. You'd think, why in the world would you even want to do it? Obviously, he loves it, and he is very good at it. With that being said, he's got a huge audience. Can't necessarily promote it clear as day, of course, on Monday Night Football, but people are starting to understand that 8 is a can of beer and probably a line of something coming from Troy. 8 is, hopefully, I imagine he wants to spread it around the country. Big market. Right now, you'd have to give the advantage to Troy Aikman because I think he's got the bigger claim that he's already in business as 8. I myself didn't realize Lamar Jackson had anything going on with the number 8. This is a copyright battle. This is something, Aikman's tweet is funny. He said, hey, we may have to have a worthy conversation over a couple of cold 8 beers, and maybe Steve Young could arbitrate. Steve Young, of course, another quarterback with the 8.
My opinion, and I'm not the attorney you are, but I have had some battles in the trademark space, is that 8 is a number that just universally is used by humanity and not really trademarkable. I don't think that either one of them, that they could make a trademark, but they're not going to be able to trademark the number 8. At least that's what I believe. Is that where you think this is going?
I think so. I mean, it's very likely that Troy Aikman can get a trademark for the beer called 8 if he doesn't already have it, if it's pending, whatever it is. Maybe the same could be said for Jackson if he's looking at utility patent of some kind or some other kind. This needs to get cleared up. I'm a little surprised it got to this extent. I imagine it'll be cleaned up and both guys will be utilizing the number 8 because it is so extraordinarily, of course, common.
All right. Next topic, Terrell Owens. You're not buying what he's selling. What's going on?
No, he's trying to sell a story that Tom Brady disrespected him because when he was with Tampa, Owens reached out to Brady and nobody responded. He's got it backwards again. 2, you were 48 years old. You disrespected the game and Tom Brady by even bothering him. Nobody's hiring a 48-year-old wide receiver that's been out for a long time unless they literally need like one game, maybe. I just heard somebody talking with Mark Messier about, could he still play? And he still says, yeah, I could play a game. So this, I don't buy. It's a little strange coming from Terrell Owens. I mean, you just randomly reach out. Who knows if Brady has the number, but he's got the disrespect thing wrong. You disrespect everybody when you say, hey, I'm 48 and I'm so good, I could still come back and play. It's almost like when you take a top 10 draft pick and pick a guy that's not going to play on your team for a couple of years. Almost.
All right. Next is what I think's, other than the 5-game benchmark, probably the most interesting subject we're going to talk about today. The NFL does not like the numbers of their profitability out there, their private corporations. But because of how the Packers organization is set up, we are learning that the pack is packing in the cash, and it's a snapshot into the NFL. Break it down for us, Johnny.
Based on the numbers that the Packers have had to report, great work by Front Office Sports to kind of digesting and dissecting what might be the numbers of revenue for the NFL. Well, they say 13 billion last season before anybody sold a ticket, hot dog, soda, beer, any kind of concession. That's not too shabby. Now, for the Packers themselves, they reported a $60.1 million operating profit at the end of the fiscal year, which was in March. This is interesting. It's showing up something like 7% up for Green Bay. And it's also kind of giving a framework to the idea that big $25 billion goal Roger Goodell has, that's the league's ambition to reach in total revenue by 2027. This gives us an idea that maybe it's possible. How far away are they? The revenue for last year for the NFL looks something like 21 billion. Mentally, you think, well, that's only 6 away. That just happens to all of us. But you've got to frame 6 billion is a humongous number. So we always, we always, when we hear million and billion, we always think, oh, well, this was 21 to 27. That's not that big of a deal. No, it's a bigger deal that we can even conceive. So it's interesting. It shows that the Packers are making money, and it's honestly one of my favorite and a lot of people's favorite things about the Packers is the way that team is set up. And unfortunately, it's like blockaded from currently happening again, to where it is essentially community owned, and they've got to do things like report these numbers. It provides a very rare glimpse into, like you said, completely private numbers. What we really don't know, and what the article talks about, is what do the big ones bring in? What do the Cowboys, the Raiders, the Steelers bring in? What do the most popular, most commerced franchises bring in? And then I just think to myself, again, from what we were talking about last week, why would anybody really care about, why would you have a revenue goal or anything? I don't know what the NFL's, hey, we're 25 billion. I don't know what that does, but it reminds me to really consider that almost everything coming out of Roger Goodell, you've got to think that that's all the 32 owners smushed together. This tells me the revenue deal is a big deal to the owners. We're going to see more grabs for revenue, and we're going to get that dial. It's going to turn up a little bit to where that we talked a little bit about last time. And I know you and others are concerned that we don't want profit or business to become the dominating driver of the NFL. It's the best competition. It's the most popular form of entertainment in the country. We want making that as good as it can be to be the top goal. We don't want people looking over being like, hey, let's see if we can find a way to pull a few more dollars. That's a concern. We'll watch it during the middle 20s. It's on the radar.
I agree. John, last question for me. It's not a Raiders question, but I think it's a fascinating one. Who's the backup in New York for the Jets? I mean, you got Aaron Rodgers. Crickets?
Yeah. So the Jets do a very smart thing, and they go snake Tyrod Taylor away from the Giants. Smart, because Taylor is a proven product. He can play at the NFL level. He can understand concepts at the level, learn NFL offenses. Fantastic career, overachieving career. Here's the interesting thing to me, and you're starting to hear some people wonder about this. Aaron Rodgers is not young anymore. In fact, it's been a long time because of what happened last year since he took some serious actual hits. What I'm curious of is there a idea with the Jets to maybe utilize their backup quarterback a lot more than they would traditionally, typically? Are we going to get to the point, and maybe it starts in New York, where you almost see a relief pitcher start to come in at some point? Now, I understand and can read the scores like everybody else. Most NFL games are very, very close. In recent time, we've seen a few more stretch out to become bigger blowouts. I'm watching the Jets to see if they not necessarily have series for Taylor to get in like a college kid would, but if they consider points in the game where they say, you know what, Aaron's done for the day. We need to preserve Aaron as much as we can because it's a long season and this guy has not played for a long time. This is interesting to me. I would be interested to see if that's something that they do. They've got some weird stuff going on there. They've got a little bit of a weird owner, a little weird situation with the offensive coordinator and wanting to have somebody else, bureaucracy. Like, huh? What's Taylor going to do? I'm interested. Do you think he might play a little more? Might we see the first relief pitcher in quarterback at a significant amount here in the NFL this year?
John, is Saleh going to be the first coach fired in 2024?
Is he going to be the first coach fired? He's certainly right there in the mix. And I don't think it'd necessarily be a bad, I know he doesn't want that to happen, but if it does, I think he's going to be like, hey, we did the best we could. And, this is the way it played out. I would think that the odds are better than 50-50. I actually think that Columbus Day, you look at the Jets schedule, we could probably pick a spot where it might be, but also they got a wild card owner. I'm going to have to go with yes. I think you're probably right. I think he probably is the first coach that's fired. Unfortunately, terrific coach, but
what I think is that he will probably be the first coach that the owner makes the decision that I'm firing. But I think he's going to have to clean house of everything. General manager, coach, everything, wipe away, rip out the cupboards, forget leaving the cupboards bare, just rip them out, do a complete demo. It's going to be fascinating to watch.
Yeah,
he is the great. I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's, of course, if it doesn't work. If the Jets take off, whole different story. But yeah, I see the same thing you do. It looks like that one's on the edge of sink or swim.
Yeah. All right, John, tell everybody, where do they find you on social media?
At JP Spartan.
At JP Spartan. Check them out. The one at John next week. We'll be right in the middle of training camp. Football will be back. Our wandering in the wilderness will be over. It starts tomorrow, brother. Talk to you later, everybody.